hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and quiet desperation. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as nurses hurried past, their shoes echoing against the polished floor. For most people, it was just another building. For Elena Parker, it was a place that held both fear and hope. She sat on a cold plastic chair, clutching her worn handbag to her chest. Her shift at the diner had ended an hour ago, and exhaustion clung to her bones. She had planned to go straight home, maybe eat instant noodles and fall asleep. Instead, she was here. "Is there anyone with O-negative blood?" a nurse had shouted earlier, panic clear in her voice. Elena hadn't even thought. Her hand had risen before her mind could catch up. "I am," she'd said. Now sitting alone, doubt crept in. She was healthy, yes, but she couldn't afford to miss work. She couldn't afford complications. She couldn't afford much of anything. Still, she stayed. Through a glass window, she could see doctors surrounding a man on a gurney. He looked pale, unconscious, blood staining the sheets beneath him. A deep gash on his side suggested a serious accident, maybe a car crash. Machines beeped urgently. "Miss Parker?" "A nurse called." Elena stood. "That's me. We appreciate what you're doing," the nurse said kindly. "He's lost a lot of blood. You're a match." Elena nodded, swallowing hard. Will he be okay?" The nurse hesitated. "If everything goes well, yes, but we need to act fast." That was enough. As Elena lay on the hospital bed, and force sliding into her arm, she stared at the ceiling tiles and tried not to think about the bills piling up at home. Her mother's medication, her rent, her life balanced constantly on the edge of survival. Why did I raise my hand? She wondered. But deep down, she knew the answer. Because someone needed help, the nurse adjusted the equipment. "You're very brave." Elena gave a tired smile. "I just hope it helps." As the blood flowed from her arm into the bag, Elena felt a strange sense of calm. Whoever this man was, rich or poor, young or old, he was someone's family, someone's reason to keep going. She had no idea that this stranger was about to change her life forever. Hours later, she was dizzy but stable. A doctor came to thank her, explaining that the patient had been stabilized and taken into surgery. "You saved his life," the doctor said simply. Elena blinked. "I just gave blood." The doctor smiled. "Sometimes that's everything." She left the hospital with a juice box in her hand and weakness in her legs, stepping out into the cool night air. The city moved on around her. Unaware of what had happened inside those walls, she never even learned his name. 2 days later, Elena returned to her routine, early mornings, greasy plates, and aching feet. The diner was busy when a black luxury car pulled up outside, completely out of place among rusted sedans. A man in a tailored suit stepped inside, scanning the room. His eyes landed on Elena. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you Elena Parker?" Her heart skipped. "Yes. My employer would like to see you," the man said respectfully. "It's very important." Elena's stomach tightened. "Employer? See me?" Panic flashed through her mind. "Who is your employer?" she asked. The man paused, then answered quietly. His name is Alexander Reed. The name meant nothing to her, but it soon would mean everything. Elena wiped her hands on her apron as the suited man waited patiently near the counter. The diner noise faded into a dull hum inside her head. Customers laughed, forks clinked against plates, coffee poured, but none of it felt real anymore. "I can't just leave," she said cautiously. "I'm in the middle of my shift." The man nodded. "Of course. My employer understands. He asked me to give you this." He placed a simple white envelope on the counter. No logo, no name, just her first name written neatly on the front. Elena hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Because of you, I am alive. Please allow me the chance to thank you in person. A.R." Her fingers trembled slightly. "When?" she asked. "Whenever you're comfortable," the man replied. But today would mean a great deal to him. Elena glanced toward the kitchen. Her manager was already scowling. She sighed. Give me 10 minutes. The car ride was silent except for the soft hum of the engine. Elena stared out the window, watching familiar streets slowly transform into neighborhoods she had only seen on television. Gated homes, manicured lawns, towering glass buildings. They pulled up to a private medical facility, far nicer than the hospital where she had given blood. Inside, everything smelled of lavender instead of antiseptic. "He's awake?" Elena asked. "Yes," the man replied, "and very eager to meet you." Alexander Reed was sitting up in bed when she entered the room. He looked nothing like the unconscious man she had glimpsed through the glass. His hair was dark, neatly combed. His face was strong but tired, eyes sharp yet gentle. The moment he saw her, he tried to stand. "Please don't," Elena said quickly. "You're supposed to be resting." Alexander smiled faintly and obeyed. "You sound like the nurses." She shifted awkwardly near the door. "You wanted to see me?" "Yes," he said quietly. "I wanted to thank you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I don't remember the accident," Alexander continued. "I was told I wouldn't be here if you hadn't volunteered." Elena shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." He shook his head slowly. "They didn't. You did." Something in his voice made her chest tighten. "I don't know how to repay you," he said, "but I intend to try." Elena's eyes widened. "Oh, no, I didn't do it for money." "I know," he replied gently. "That's what makes it matter." A small sound interrupted them. A soft cough from the corner of the room. Elena turned and saw a little boy sitting in a chair, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. He couldn't have been more than 6. His eyes were red, as if he'd been crying. Alexander's expression softened instantly. "This is my son," he said. "Noah." Noah stood slowly and walked toward Elena. "You saved my dad," he said in a tiny voice. Elena crouched down, heart melting. "I'm glad he's okay." Noah nodded, then hugged her suddenly, arms wrapping tightly around her waist. Alexander swallowed hard, turning his face away. "He hasn't let go of many people since his mother died," he said quietly. Elena froze. I'm sorry, so am I," Alexander replied. Every day, over the next hour, Elena learned pieces of Alexander's life. He was a widower, a single father. His accident had happened on his way home from Noah's school recital, a recital he never made it to. "I thought I failed him," Alexander admitted, "and then you appeared, a stranger, and saved me." Elena looked at Noah, now drawing dinosaurs on a notepad. "He still has you." Alexander met her gaze. "Because of you, when it was time to leave," Alexander handed her another envelope. Elena stepped back. "Please don't. It's not payment," he said softly. "It's an invitation, dinner, with Noah, so he can thank you properly." She hesitated. Noah looked up. "Please?" Her resolve crumbled instantly. "Okay," she said, smiling. "One dinner." As she walked out of the building, Elena had no idea that this dinner would be the beginning of a bond neither of them had been looking for, but both desperately needed. And she still had no idea that Alexander Reed wasn't just a grateful stranger. He was one of the most powerful billionaires in the city. Elena almost canceled. She stood in front of her tiny apartment mirror, smoothing down the simple blue dress she owned for special occasions. Funerals, interviews, moments that demanded more than jeans and a diner uniform. The dress was old but clean, and she paired it with flats that pinched her toes. "It's just dinner," she muttered to herself. Still, her heart raced. When the car arrived, Noah ran ahead of the driver, nearly tripping on the sidewalk. "You came," he said brightly. Elena laughed. "I said I would." Alexander followed, walking slower than usual, still recovering. He looked different tonight. No hospital gown, no monitors. Just a crisp shirt and quiet confidence. "You look lovely," he said simply. Elena felt her cheeks warm. "Thank you." The restaurant overlooked the city skyline. Elena froze when she saw it. This place is too fancy, she whispered. I don't belong here. Alexander paused. You belong wherever you choose to be. The words settled into her chest more deeply than she expected. Inside, waiters greeted Alexander by name. Elena noticed. Her fingers tightened around her napkin. Alexander, she asked carefully as they sat, what do you do? He hesitated. I invest, he said. That was all. Halfway through dinner, Elena excused herself to the restroom. As she returned, she overheard voices near the bar. That's Reed, a man whispered. The Reed Holdings billionaire. Elena stopped walking. Single dad. Lost his wife years ago. Her pulse thundered. Billionaire? Her mind raced. Private drivers, the facility, the confidence. It all made sense now. She returned to the table slowly. You didn't tell me, she said. Alexander met her eyes. You didn't ask. That's not fair, she said quietly. I wanted you to meet me first, he replied. Not the money, not the headlines. Noah looked between them, confused. Elena forced a smile. I just need some air. Outside, the city lights blurred as tears filled her eyes. She felt foolish, small, out of place. Moments later, Alexander joined her. I should have told you, he said. I'm sorry. She folded her arms. I don't want to be part of some charity project. You're not, he said firmly. You're the woman who saved my life. Silence stretched between them. No one's ever done that for me, she admitted softly. Alexander's voice dropped. You did it without knowing who I was. That matters more to me than anything I own. Elena looked at him then, not as a billionaire, but as a man who almost died and a father who nearly left his son alone. I don't want this to get complicated, she said. It already is, he replied gently. The next morning, Elena's face was everywhere. Local woman saves tech mogul's life, the headlines read. Reporters swarmed the diner. Her manager panicked. Customers stared. By noon, Elena quit her job. She went home, overwhelmed, and found a note slipped under her door. I'm so sorry. This wasn't what I wanted. Please let me help you through this. Alexander. Her phone buzzed. It was him. Elena stared at the screen, heart torn between fear and something dangerously close to hope. The knock on Elena's door came just after sunrise. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashing cameras and heard strangers saying her name like they owned it. Elena, Alex. Anders' voice called softly from the hallway. Please. She opened the door, eyes red, hair uncombed. I didn't want this, she said before he could speak. I know, he replied. And I'm so sorry. He stepped inside, careful not to overwhelm her. Noah waited outside with the driver. I've handled the press, Alexander continued. They'll leave you alone now. How? She asked bitterly. I threatened lawsuits, he said honestly, and I told them the story was over. She laughed weakly. Must be nice having that kind of power. Alexander winced. Power doesn't fix everything. She looked at him, really looked at him. Then why does it feel like your world almost crushed mine? Silence answered. Later that day, Elena sat with Alexander at a quiet cafe he had arranged to rent out just for them. She didn't want secrecy, but she needed peace. I grew up invisible, she said suddenly. My dad left. My mom worked herself sick. I learned early not to expect help. Alexander listened without interrupting. When I gave blood, she continued, it wasn't because I wanted recognition. It was because no one helped us when we needed it. I didn't want to be like that. Her voice cracked. Alexander reached across the table but stopped short. Thank you for trusting me with that. There's more, she whispered. He waited. My mom died last year, Elena said, because we couldn't afford better care. Alexander closed his eyes. That's why this hurts, she said, because now everyone's saying I'm lucky, that I won some kind of prize. Tears spilled over. But where was luck when she was dying? Alexander's voice shook. I would give every dollar I have to change that. She looked at him then, truly seeing his pain too. That evening, Alexander made a decision. At a press conference, he stood alone. Elena Parker is not a headline, he said firmly. She is a hero, and she deserves privacy and respect. Then he announced the creation of a foundation in his late wife's name, providing free emergency care for families in need. Elena watched from home, stunned. Days later, she received a letter. You once saved a stranger without knowing his name. I'm trying to become the kind of man worthy of that gift. No expectations, no pressure, just honesty. Alexander. She folded the letter carefully. When she met him again, it wasn't in a restaurant or hospital. It was at a park. No cameras, no suits. Noah ran ahead, laughing. Elena smiled despite herself. Hi, Alexander said. Hi, she replied. Something fragile but real stood between them. Trust, slowly rebuilding. The park smelled of fresh grass and late afternoon sunlight. Children's laughter floated through the air, carried by the breeze. Elena sat on a wooden bench, watching Noah chase pigeons with unrestrained joy, his laughter ringing clear and bright. She hadn't realized how much she missed this kind of normal. Alexander stood beside her, hands in his pockets, quieter than usual. Thank you for coming, he said. Elena nodded. I needed this. They sat in silence for a while, not awkward but thoughtful. The kind of silence that only comes when two people have been through something heavy together. I've been thinking, Elena said finally, about everything. The blood, the headlines, the foundation. Alexander looked at her carefully. And I don't regret any of it, she said. Not for a second. Relief flickered across his face. But, she continued, I need to know something. Anything. If I hadn't saved you, if I was just a woman from a diner, would you still be sitting here? Alexander didn't answer right away. Then he said, quietly but firmly, yes. Because you showed me something I forgot existed. She turned toward him. Hope, he said. Selflessness. The kind of courage money can't buy. Elena swallowed hard. That night, Elena returned to her apartment and stared at the stack of unopened mail on her table. Bills, notices, fear wrapped in paper. The foundati. On Alexander had started, was already helping families. People like her mother, people like her. And she realized something important. She didn't want to be rescued. She wanted to build something. The next morning she called Alexander. I have a proposal, she said. They met in his office, a place Elena once would have felt completely out of place. Now she walked in steady, head held high. I don't want money, she said before he could speak. I want opportunity. Alexander leaned forward. Tell me. I want to work with the foundation, Elena said. Not as a symbol, as someone on the ground. Hospitals, donors, families. I know what it's like to be invisible. I can help. Alexander smiled, proud, not surprised. I was hoping you'd say that. Months passed, Elena became the foundation's strongest advocate. She spoke to donors, visited emergency rooms, and sat with families in waiting rooms, just like the one where she'd first raised her hand. She wore no fancy clothes, no spotlight, just purpose. Noah adored her. He'd wait for her visits, tugging at her hand, asking endless questions. Are you coming tomorrow too? He asked one evening. She smiled. I'll always come back. Alexander watched them together, heart full and terrified all at once. One night, after Noah fell asleep, he finally spoke. I'm afraid, he admitted. Elena looked at him gently. Of what? Of loving again, he said. Of losing. She took his hand. Love always risks loss. But it also saves lives. He laughed softly. You really did save mine. No, she said. You chose to live. I just gave you time. The day Elena moved out of her apartment, she stood in the empty doorway and took one last look. She wasn't leaving poverty behind. She was leaving fear. Years later, at a small charity event, no press, no headlines, Noah stood between Elena and Alexander, holding both their hands. Family picture. He Announced. Elena laughed. Alexander smiled. The camera clicked. And in that moment, there was no billionaire, no waitress, no stranger. Just 3 lives forever changed by one selfless act. Because sometimes, giving blood doesn't just save a life. It creates one.